Jin-Woo is considered the weakest hunter in the world, mocked and underestimated by everyone. But after a near-death experience in a dungeon, he gains a unique ability that changes his fate forever, and then the story continues with Jin-Woo sleeping late, only to be jolted awake by a phone call from Gina. Hearing his groggy voice, Gina immediately realizes he's still in bed and sharply asks if he even knows what time it is. Jin-Woo glances at the clock and is shocked to see that it's already 2 p.m. Gina quickly reminds him of her parent-teacher meeting scheduled for today, leaving Jin-Woo scrambling to get ready. Later, Jin-Woo arrives at the meeting looking surprisingly well-dressed. Gina is stunned by his dashing appearance and can't help but comment on it. Jin-Woo, noticing her reaction, asks if something is wrong. Gina reassures him, saying it's not a problem, just unexpected. Jin-Woo explains that he wanted to dress appropriately since showing up in sportswear wouldn't be suitable. Gina chuckles, amused by how much people can change. As they walk through the school halls, Jin-Woo garners attention from the girls around, who whisper curiously about him. Noticing this, Gina teases him about not having a girlfriend yet, even offering to introduce him to someone. Embarrassed, Jin-Woo dismisses the idea angrily. At the meeting, Jin-Woo speaks with Gina's teacher, who is full of praise for her. The teacher describes Gina as an exemplary student and a role model, highlighting her strong performance in mock exams. Confident that Gina can get into medical college, the teacher advises Jin-Woo not to pressure her too much. Jin-Woo agrees, but as the meeting ends, the teacher poses a curious question. What would he do if Gina awakened as a hunter and wanted to pursue that path? Jin-Woo's response is immediate and firm. He wouldn't allow it. The teacher, seemingly expecting this answer, mentions a favor she'd like to ask. The scene transitions to Jin-Woo meeting C, who is surprised to see him. Jin-Woo reveals he's Gina's brother, and C quickly deduces that the teacher must have sent him to convince her to quit being a hunter. C, however, refuses, declaring she won't quit or return to school. Jin-Woo points out the harsh reality. As an E-rank hunter, her opportunities to earn money are limited. While she may have earned well with his assault team, that was an exception. Frustrated, C tells him to leave if all he plans to do is lecture her. She even throws his own rank back at him, reminding him that he's also E-rank. Jin-Woo, unfazed, calmly states that he's not here to lecture or convince her to quit. Instead, he invites her to follow him elsewhere. Meanwhile, in Japan, Janelle greets Donggu upon his arrival, surprising Dong with a personal reception. Sarcastically, Dong remarks that the chief of the Hunter Association himself has come to welcome him. Janelle wastes no time, directly asking how long Dong plans to stay. Dong reassures him that he won't stay long, but cryptically hints at his true purpose, meeting two specific individuals. Janelle, skeptical, notes that Dong has returned to the country he betrayed, supposedly for this reason. Elsewhere, monsters are unloaded from a helicopter that Guildmaster Choi and his team brought back from Mjojo Island. Choi briefs the chairman of the Hunter Association, explaining that these creatures have been attempting to cross the sea to reach the mainland. Although they've failed to sustain flight and fell into the water, he warns that they might succeed one day. The chairman promises to take every measure to prevent this scenario. The scene shifts to Jin-Woo, meeting Sang after a sudden call. Sang, surprised, comments on how rare it is to hear from Jin-Woo and notices Song Yi is with him. Jin-Woo apologizes for the abrupt request, but Sang assures him it's fine, though he's curious about Jin-Woo's interest in observing their training. Sang points to a nearby gate, explaining that it's a level S rank gate that recently appeared. As they talk, an impatient man interrupts, grumbling about starting the raid already. Jin-Woo glances at him curiously, and Sang introduces him as Kim Chai, an A-rank hunter and leader of the assault team. Kim Cha's annoyance is evident, as he's unhappy about having E-rank hunters tagging along to watch the raid. Sang tries to smooth things over by explaining the team composition: 1 A-rank hunter, 5 B-rank hunters, and 2 E-rank hunters, making a total of 10 participants, including Jin-Woo and Song Yi. Jin-Woo is slightly disappointed by the large group, as his primary goal was to show Song Yi the harsh realities of dungeon raids. Too many participants might dilute the experience. As the team enters the gate, Jin-Woo immediately senses something off. The gate behind them begins to glow red, behaving unusually. Jim realizes the gate is a red gate just as its pull intensifies, dragging him back inside despite his desperate attempt to warn Song. Before being fully pulled in, he manages to shout for Sang to contact the assault team. Once inside, Jim and the group find themselves in an endless snowfield, the gate they entered now completely vanished. Kim Cha, the leader, steps forward, his expression grim. "We're trapped inside a red gate." Sonya, confused, asks what that means. Jim calmly explains, "Unlike regular gates, a red gate completely cuts off communication with the outside world. The only way to escape is by defeating the dungeon's boss or waiting for the dungeon to collapse. But collapsing takes months, and until then, we're on our own, surrounded by dangerous magical beasts." Suddenly, arrows rain down on the group. One hunter falls instantly, killed by a direct hit. Another arrow hurtles towards Sonya, but Jim reacts swiftly, catching it mid-air and shielding her. Sonya stares at him, stunned by his reflexes. The group quickly realizes they're surrounded by ice elves, their pale figures blending into the snowy environment. "They're ice slayers," Jim notes, his voice calm but serious. "Ruthless predators known for their brutal efficiency. They target the weakest first, thinning the herd before launching a full assault." The ice elves retreat as quickly as they appeared, leaving the group shaken. Kim Cha takes command, stating firmly he proposes splitting the group into two teams to improve their chances of survival, citing the risk of freezing to death if they stay in one place. However, Kim Cha quickly singles out the weaker members, refusing to take them along. "Dead weight will only slow us down," he says coldly. "We'll come back for you once we defeat the boss." One girl, however, chooses to stay with Jim. Jim neither confirms nor denies her suspicions. Kim Cha leads his group down the main road, confident it's the best route. Meanwhile, Jim decides to guide his team through the forest. Along the way, Kim Cha's group encounters claw marks on the trees, signaling ice bear territory. Smugly, Kim remarks, "Those weaklings will never survive this." Moments later, they're ambushed by massive ice bears. Kim Cha, with his shield and axe, manages to slay one bear and engages the others, his confidence unwavering despite the danger. In the forest, Jim's group also spots claw marks. The girl warns, "This is ice bear territory. We should turn back." But Jim disagrees. "It's safer here. The bears dominate this area, which means no other magical beasts will challenge them. We only have to deal with the bears." The girl considers his reasoning and nods in agreement. As they press on, the air grows colder. Jim pulls coats from his inventory, using subspace magic to distribute them to the team. The group marvels at his ability, putting on the coats with gratitude. Sonya, still puzzled, asks, "Who are you, really?" Jim avoids the question, reminding her that it's his responsibility to protect her and the others. He then requests that they not ask further questions. Just then, a massive ice bear emerges from the shadows. Jim steps forward, his demeanor shifting as he changes his title to Wolf Assassin, preparing for the fight. Outside the gate, Bake observes the ominous red glow. His face is grim as he mutters, "This gate is bad news. Only high-ranking hunters have a chance of surviving that hell." He places his hopes on Kim Chol, believing that his rank might provide the assault team with a fighting chance. However, Sang informs him that, along with the official assault team, other individuals have entered the gate, including Jin-Woo. Curious, Beck asks about Jin-Woo's rank. Sang replies that Jin-Woo is officially E rank, but suspects he might have reawakened, though Jin-Woo has never confirmed it. Beck isn't optimistic about Jin-Woo's chances, but their conversation is interrupted by Dong-Su's arrival with a scowl. Beck is visibly displeased, questioning why Dong-Su is here when he's supposed to be in America. Ignoring the question, Dong-Su challenges Beck instead, demanding to know why an E-rank hunter was allowed inside the gate, especially since Jin-Woo isn't part of their guild. It becomes clear that Dong-Su is referring to Jin-Woo, leaving Bayek wondering how Dong-Su knows him. Dong-Su scoffs at the mention of the Red Gate, lamenting that Jin-Woo will likely die inside before he gets the chance to meet him. Inside the gate, Jin-Woo finishes off the last of the ice bears, earning yet another level up. His team, including the girl, is left in awe, wondering who he truly is. Later, the group gathers to eat roasted bear meat, astonished that Jin-Woo managed to defeat so many bears on his own. The girl warns them not to let their guard down, as the lair of the monsters must be nearby. Meanwhile, S remarks on Jin-Woo's strange behavior, questioning why he would go out for exercise right after such an intense battle. The others agree, puzzled by his actions. Elsewhere, Jin-Woo stands outside the lair of the ice bears, ready to test his shadow army. He summons them, watching as the shadows charge forward. They easily cut down the bears, but some of the creatures fight back ferociously, managing to rip apart parts of the army. The shadows, however, regenerate quickly using Jin-Woo's mana and rejoin the fight. The mages within his army provide excellent support, and Jin-Woo is impressed by their performance, though he notes that maintaining them consumes a significant amount of his mana. Suddenly, the massive boss of the Ice Bears emerges. With a single devastating attack, it wipes out Jin-Woo's entire shadow army, draining a significant portion of his mana in the process. Unable to regenerate his soldiers, Jin-Woo summons Igris. The Shadow Knight steps forward confidently as the bear charges. Igris dodges with ease, delivering a precise slash. In moments, the bear is brought to its knees. It attempts one final desperate attack, but Igris finishes it with a swift beheading. Jin-Woo watches, impressed by Igris's power. Reflecting on their earlier duel, he admits that he would have lost back then if Igris had used his sword. Even now, at his current level, Jin-Woo suspects Igris might still be stronger. Praising Igris for his flawless performance, Jin-Woo takes a moment to regroup. Meanwhile, Kim Chol's party faces the Ice Elves. All of his teammates are slaughtered, leaving him alone to process the nightmare unfolding before him. Bitterly, he reflects on how close he was to becoming an elite member of the White Tiger Guild, only to end up in this dire situation. Terrified by the sight of the elves and the remaining survivors, Kim Chol realizes he stands no chance. Overwhelmed by fear, he turns and runs as fast as he can to escape. Jin stands victorious over the Death Bears, showcasing his immense power as a necromancer. With a simple command, he orders the fallen beasts to rise. Shadow Bears emerge from their corpses, seamlessly joining Jin's ever-growing shadow army. Outside the portal, Sang explains that the strike force has been trapped inside for 3 hours, a duration that translates to nearly 3 days due to the portal's distorted time. Red gates are notoriously dangerous, and Dongsu, confident of Jin-Woo's demise, begins preparing to leave. However, before departing, Dongsu demands to know why Jin-Woo was associating with the White Tiger Guild in the first place. Sang casually responds, explaining that Jin-Woo is merely an acquaintance who wanted to observe a C-rank mission. While Sang assumes this answer will suffice, Dongsu shocks everyone by suddenly grabbing Sang by the throat. Dongsu isn't fooled. He has a talent for identifying promising new hunters, and he suspects there's more to Jin-Woo than Sang lets on. At that moment, Baek steps forward, transforming into his combat form as he orders Dongsu to stop. This only enrages Dongsu further, who dismisses Baek as nothing more than a big fish in a small pond. The tension escalates as the two S-rank hunters release waves of power, sending terror rippling through those nearby. Sang grows increasingly alarmed, fearing an all-out battle could devastate the area. Nevertheless, the clash seems inevitable. Meanwhile, inside the portal, Kim Cheol breathes a sigh of relief after narrowly escaping a group of elves. But his relief turns to horror when he stumbles upon the mangled corpses of the Death Bears. The sight leaves him trembling, and he begins to wonder how the E-rank party he abandoned could be responsible for such devastation. Convinced the Ice Elves must be the true culprits, Kim Cheol retreats into the forest. Outside the gate, Dongsu is surprised when Jin-Ho intervenes, successfully de-escalating the S-rank conflict. Jin-Ho humbly admits that the only reason his arms remain intact is that the two S-rank hunters restrained themselves at the last moment. Dongsu, however, remains skeptical. Jin-Ho reassures him that Jin-Woo is just an E-rank hunter, reiterating that his reassessment 2 months ago showed no evidence to the contrary. Jin-Ho also explains that the surveillance team's investigation into Dongsu's brother's death revealed the culprit to be a magical beast. Dongsu dismisses this as a convenient cover-up and accuses the wealthy Leo of being behind it. When Jin-Ho questions why Dongsu is targeting Jin-Woo if he believes him innocent, Dongsu coldly replies, "It's an excuse to kill." Before the conversation can continue, Dongsu is called away, muttering that Jin-Woo is lucky. Sang watches him leave, reflecting on how no one truly understands the depth of Jin-Woo's power as he does. Confident in Jin-Woo's strength, Sang believes he will survive the Red Gate. Inside the gate, Jin-Woo's group huddles around a fire, trying to stay warm. Their brief moment of peace is shattered when Kim Cheol storms in. furious to find them alive and thriving. Dressed in weather gear and surrounded by blankets and food, the group is clearly in much better shape than Kim Cheol's own party. Enraged, he accuses them of hoarding supplies, blaming them for his team's demise. Blinded by anger, Kim Cheol issues an ultimatum, demanding the culprit confess or face his wrath. He counts down, but before he can act, Jin-Woo suddenly appears, effortlessly overpowering him. The group is stunned by their leader's unexpected return. Sensing something sinister nearby, Jin-Woo accuses Kim Cheol of dragging even greater trouble into their midst. Turning his attention to the surroundings, he calls out to a hidden presence, stating that their aura is far too strong to go unnoticed. In response, ice elves reveal themselves, their leader sneering that one of the human scum is unexpectedly strong. To everyone's shock, Jin-Woo retorts fluently in the language of magical beasts. Even Jin-Woo is momentarily surprised by his ability, quickly deducing that his cheat-like system is responsible. The elven leader explains their presence, revealing that one of his men sensed Jin-Woo's immense power and wanted to challenge him. Before the leader can finish his explanation, Jin-Woo swiftly decapitates the challenger. The leader, amused by this display of brutality, taunts Jin-Woo. But the necromancer is uninterested in further games. Without hesitation, Jin-Woo launches a devastating attack. The elven leader skillfully defends himself against Jin-Woo, and it quickly becomes evident that this opponent won't be easily defeated. Amused, the leader remarks that Jin-Woo isn't human and questions why he's pretending to be. Though confused by the comment, Jin-Woo notes the leader's laughter, which hints at knowledge Jin-Woo doesn't yet possess. The leader reveals a strange truth. Elves are driven by a voice in their minds, compelling them to kill humans. However, this voice goes silent in Jin-Woo's presence. Suspicious, Jin-Woo wonders if this anomaly is linked to his system directives. The leader speculates aloud that Jin-Woo might not be entirely human. Unmoved, Jin-Woo demands to know why the elves are targeting humans in the first place. Before the leader can fully explain, his body glitches unnaturally, his words repeating as if stuck in a loop. Jin-Woo refuses to comply with the elves' demands, prompting the leader to warn that defiance would make him their sworn enemy. He also reminds Jin-Woo of their overwhelming numbers. Undeterred, Jin-Woo questions the leader's confidence and, with a commanding gesture, summons his Shadow Army. The elven leader dismisses the Shadow Army as inconsequential, but Jin-Woo ignores him and presses for combat. Despite his prowess, he begins to understand the source of the leader's confidence. The elves are far stronger than he anticipated, inflicting significant damage. While Jin-Woo's Shadow Army is technically immortal, regenerating his troops drains his magic power. Though Jin-Woo possesses a considerable reserve, he realizes it isn't infinite and could eventually run out. Worse still, the elven leader is undeniably stronger than him. When the leader engages Jin-Woo directly, even with Igris fighting alongside him, the elf proves an overwhelming opponent. Assessing the situation, Jin-Woo concludes that his regular soldiers won't suffice against such a powerful foe. The leader formally introduces himself as Bara, and Jin-Woo returns the gesture before they clash with ferocity. Bara immediately displays his dominance, forcing Jin-Woo onto the defensive. However, Bara is momentarily stunned when Jin-Woo teleports his blade to his opposite hand mid-attack. The two continue exchanging blows with narrow misses, but Bara gradually pushes Jin-Woo back. Delighted by the challenge, Bara admits he hasn't enjoyed a fight like this in years. Smiling, Jin-Woo unleashes a massive meteor spell, catching Bara off guard. Meanwhile, Kim Cheol regains consciousness, seething with anger and hatred. Watching the chaos unfold, he grips his sword tightly, determined to take down Jin-Woo. Using the battle as a distraction, Kim Cheol makes his move. Anticipating this, Jin-Woo orders Igris to create a dense smoke screen. In the cover of the smoke, Igris swiftly ends Kim Cheol's life. Filled with regret in his final moments, Kim Cheol realizes too late that Jin-Woo had planned for this all along. As Kim Cheol's lifeless body falls, Jin-Woo commands him to rise. A radiant light erupts, and Kim Cheol is reborn as a towering shadow soldier whom Jin-Woo names Iron. The resurrected Iron lets out a deafening scream, shaking Bara's confidence for the first time. Despite his initial bravado, Bara is forced to momentarily retreat as Iron confronts him. Assessing the new opponent, Bara notes that while Iron lacks agility, he possesses immense durability. Nearby, Sonya and the other humans watch in disbelief, realizing they are witnessing a battle far beyond anything they've ever seen. While Iron holds his ground, Bara demands a true challenge, calling Jin-Woo and Igris to join the fray. Accepting with a smirk, Jin-Woo engages Bara in an intense 3-on-1 battle. Bara's overwhelming strength is on full display as he fends off Jin-Woo, Igris, and Iron simultaneously. As Bara dodges Igris' strikes, Jin-Woo takes advantage of an opening and lands a stab. Though it isn't fatal, Jin-Woo is impressed by Bara's resilience. Bara, bristling at being underestimated, vows to end the fight. However, Jin-Woo diverts his attention momentarily to the battlefield and notices something alarming. His shadow army has already decimated Bara's forces. Despite this grim sight, Bara remains confident, certain that killing Jin-Woo will turn the tide. When Jin-Woo throws his dagger, Bara mocks him for discarding his weapon. Sensing an opportunity, Jin-Woo orders Iron to restrain Bara. Immobilized, Bara becomes the target of a devastating fire attack unleashed by Jin-Woo's magic soldiers. Despite the overwhelming strike, Bara isn't finished. He cuts through Iron and vows to annihilate the humans. Jin-Woo counters swiftly, delivering a fatal blow that silences Bara once and for all. Jin-Woo declares the battle over, but Bara, defiant to the end, insists it isn't finished until he says so. His defiance is short-lived as Iron regenerates and rushes him completely. Jin-Woo reiterates that the battle is indeed over as Bara lies lifeless on the ground. Suddenly, the ground begins to tremble, but it's merely Iron ensuring their victory is absolute. Jin-Woo reprimands Iron, reminding him to show restraint, and silently hopes this behavior won't become a recurring issue. Outside the portal, Baek tells everyone it's time to return home, noting that a week has passed inside and survival chances are slim. However, Baek refuses to leave, unwilling to abandon his missing guild members. Both men are stunned when the portal begins to open. Baek confidently assumes it's Kim Chul, believing his guild member managed to succeed. But shock overtakes them as the figure emerging isn't Kim Chul. It's Jin-Woo, alive and unscathed. Jin-Woo stands as the undeniable victor as the gate closes behind him. Baek is left wondering about Kim Chul's fate and is horrified to learn that only the low-ranked hunters survived. Deeply curious about what transpired, Baek approaches Jin-Woo for answers. However, Jin-Woo, visibly exhausted, tells Baek to direct his questions to someone in his guild. Baek, taken aback, interprets this as defiance and is stunned by Jin-Woo's audacity. Tensions rise as Baek grows more serious, emphasizing that 6 of his guild members are missing, making it his duty to find out what happened. Jin-Woo, unfazed, calmly points out that he was the one who saved the 2 surviving members, meaning Baek should be showing gratitude instead. Realizing Jin-Woo is right, Baek cools down and apologizes for his earlier demeanor. With the situation diffused, Jin-Woo departs, taking Sia home. Afterward, Baek turns to Park, asking about Jin-Woo and why he seems so angry. Park explains that Jin-Woo's mood only changed after defeating the boss. Sia suggests it's likely due to exhaustion, noting that Jin-Woo is usually a kind person. Intrigued, Baek instructs Sia to do whatever it takes to recruit Jin-Woo into their guild. Later, Jin-Woo drops off Sia at her home. She thanks him for everything and says she looks forward to seeing him again. As he leaves, Jin-Woo reflects on the ordeal. Surprisingly, less than a day has passed since they were trapped in the gate. He feels disappointed. Looking back, Jin-Woo remembers attempting to raise Bara as an immortal soldier. Despite 3 attempts, he failed to extract him. Jin-Woo takes solace in gaining Iron from the situation, but can't ignore the fact that this marks the 3rd time he has had to take human lives. The next day, Jin-Woo meets Leo, who is shocked by Leo's flashy, over-the-top attire. As they prepare for their mission, Jin-Woo mentions they need to pick someone up first. That someone turns out to be Sia, much to Leo's surprise. Seeing how informal Jin-Woo and Sia are with each other, Leo grows suspicious. When Jin-Woo casually asks Sia if she managed to get any sleep, Leo misinterprets the interaction, worried about Jin-Woo's intentions. Leo reminds Jin-Woo that Sia is underage. Jin-Woo brushes it off, clearly unaware of Leo's misunderstanding, which only fuels Leo's concern. Sometime later, Leo watches in amazement as Jin-Woo's soldiers brutally annihilate a group of powerful beasts. He is baffled, unable to figure out where these soldiers came from. Jin-Woo realizes that Leo hasn't seen them before and explains that they are part of one of his strongest skills. Leo is stunned because he didn't think such monstrous power was even possible. With the battle over, Jin-Woo orders his army to start mining the area for crystals. Feeling inadequate compared to their efficiency, Leo asks Jin-Woo to let him collect the magic gems. Jin-Woo isn't selfish, so one of his soldiers offers to share the work. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a man is seen standing amidst the wreckage of a destroyed ship. A frightened soldier begs for his life, but the man calmly tells him to relax. However, they don't speak the same language. Switching to broken English, the man introduces himself as a human and says he just wants to go home. Back with Jin-Woo, he and Leo celebrate completing the 19 raids they had agreed on. With the raids done, Leo's next goal is to pass the written exam at the association to earn his guildmaster's license. Once he has the license, he'll finally be able to negotiate with his father. Jin-Woo announces that he plans to travel for a while. Leo assumes Jin-Woo wants to get away from him, but Jin-Woo denies it, joking that he's just drunk. Leo, however, is used to being pushed away, especially by his older brother, who is 10 years older and has always been cold towards him. In contrast, Jin-Woo has helped Leo so much that Leo wishes Jin-Woo were his real brother. Moved by Leo's pain, Jin-Woo pours 2 drinks and declares that, from now on, he will consider Leo his little brother. Leo is stunned but deeply touched. Elsewhere, investigators restrain the mysterious man from the shipwreck and discuss his origins. He claims to be a foreign hunter who was trapped inside a gate 10 years ago and only recently escaped through a gate in America. The investigators, skeptical, worry he might be a humanoid magic beast. To verify his identity, they call in an S-rank hunter, Donggu, for questioning. They know only one thing about the man. His name is
Sung Hwan.
Later, Jin-Woo tells his sister Gina that he'll be traveling for a week. She teases him, asking who he's going with. Irritated, Jin-Woo replies that he's going with a friend and leaves it at that. Soon after, Jin-Woo stands at the entrance of the demon castle, reflecting on how far he's come since barely surviving his fight with Cerberus at level 20. Now, at 3 times that level, he feels confident this challenge will be different. Using his system key, Jin-Woo unlocks the gate to the castle. Reviewing his quest objectives, he learns he must collect 10,000 demon souls. Shocked by the massive number, Jin-Woo resolves to complete the quest, as it's the only way to obtain the elixir of life to save Gina's mother. No matter how many demons stand in his way, Jin-Woo is determined to succeed. Back with Leo, he speaks to his father Han about taking over their guild. Leo knows his older brother also wants control, but he disagrees with his brother's methods, arguing that bringing in an outsider to run the guild is too risky. Han shifts the focus to Jin-Woo, criticizing Leo for associating with him. Han recounts Jin-Woo's involvement in controversial incidents, including the double dungeon, the raid where Han's team was wiped out, and the surveillance team incident. Despite the dangers, Jin-Woo survived all 3. Han acknowledges that Jin-Woo helped Leo clear 19 raids and played a key role in the Red Gate incident, saving survivors. Han accuses Leo of relying on Jin-Woo to gain an edge, but surprises Leo by agreeing to let him pursue leadership, on one condition. Han wants Jin-Woo recruited into their guild. He reveals that the White Tiger Guild has been trying to recruit Jin-Woo since the Red Gate incident due to his immense potential. Han challenges Leo to secure Jin-Woo's allegiance, and Leo accepts, determined to succeed. Inside the demon castle, Jin-Woo defeats countless demons but is frustrated that he can't extract their shadows to add to his army. Despite this setback, he presses on, eventually collecting 10,000 souls and completing the quest's main requirement. Moving forward, Jin-Woo encounters Vulcan, the boss-class demon of the lower floors, whose name appears in red text, signaling extreme danger. Vulcan attacks with blinding speed, catching Jin-Woo off guard. Jin-Woo dodges the strike and counters with a powerful punch that sends the massive demon flying. Shocked by his own strength, Jin-Woo wonders if he accidentally leveled up. Vulcan, however, isn't finished and transforms, becoming even more dangerous. Jin-Woo calls for his soldier, Iron, who provides a shield just in time. The battle intensifies as Jin-Woo struggles to find an opening against Vulcan, whose movements are unpredictable. Eventually, Jin-Woo identifies a vulnerable spot on the demon's head and prepares for a final strike. Jin-Woo continues his fight, determined to complete his mission, and Jin-Woo quickly coming up with a plan to limit the beast's movement. He spots a nearby building and sprints toward it. Vulcan, too focused on chasing Jin-Woo, crashes straight into the structure. With the beast temporarily immobilized, Jin-Woo summons his weapon. In a single, decisive strike, he slices through Vulcan's neck. The Lord of the Lower Floors is defeated, and Jin-Woo earns a rare item called the World Tree Fragment as his reward. Meanwhile, Sung Hwan is being interrogated by Dong-soo, who has heard rumors that Sung Hwan might be a talking magic beast. Sung Hwan denies the accusations and even offers to undergo tests, including DNA analysis, to prove his humanity. However, Dong-soo plays the bad cop, ordering Sung Hwan to stay silent unless spoken to. Frustrated, Dong-soo looks over Sung Hwan's paperwork. Sung Hwan asks if he can speak, but Dong-soo snaps, telling him to be quiet. Ignoring the warning, Sung Hwan presses on, questioning how much humanity truly understands about gates and magic beasts. Dong-soo dismisses the topic, but Sung Hwan elaborates, explaining that dungeons, gates, and magic beasts are just the surface. He warns that a catastrophic power has already awakened. Sung Hwan insists his only goal is to stop the impending disaster. But Dong-soo, irritated, mocks him. He points out that millions of hunters exist worldwide, claiming they can handle any threat if they work together. Sung Hwan disagrees, revealing that numbers won't matter against what's coming. He warns that hunters will be devoured and turned into weapons against humanity. Dong-soo, increasingly annoyed, ridicules Sung Hwan's backstory, questioning how a magic beast could have a wife and 2 children. Mockingly, he asks Sung Hwan the name of his son. Sung Hwan replies, Jin-Woo. Amused, Dong-soo smirks and informs Sung Hwan that his son is dead. He refuses to answer any more of Sung Hwan's questions, adding that Hwan can ask his son about it in the afterlife. Hearing this, Sung Hwan's expression darkens, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Back in the dungeon, Jin-Woo's shadow army is tearing through a group of demons. Jin-Woo observes the leader of the group and notes that the battle has become one-sided. The demon leader, visibly terrified, trembles as Jin-Woo realizes that even the undead can feel fear. In an instant, Jin-Woo slices off the leader's head. A notification confirms that Jin-Woo has just defeated Mitus, the Guardian of Souls, and leveled up again. Outside the dungeon, parts of the city lie in ruins after a massive battle. An investigator surveys the scene, reflecting on how fights between S-rank hunters can reshape entire landscapes. Fortunately, the destruction was contained to this area. The devastation had occurred so quickly that it seemed to happen in an instant. The investigator notes that Dong-soo was defeated so swiftly that the damage didn't have time to spread further. Back in the dungeon, Jin-Woo runs out of food, signaling that his current exploration has reached its limit. He has made it to floor 75, but knows there are still 25 floors left to conquer. The progress, however, has been worth it. From a skeleton he defeated, Jin-Woo obtained a powerful necklace. From the beast on floor 50, he earned an earring. Individually, these items are strong, but together they provide a set bonus, adding 5 points to all stats. Spotting an empty slot in the set, Jin-Woo concludes there's one more B-rank beast he must defeat. Additionally, Jin-Woo acquires the Sphere of Avarice. While it doesn't directly benefit him, it doubles the firepower of his magic soldiers, making it a valuable asset. His final reward is a chance to open the cursed random loot box, which he feared he might never use. Inside, he finds a second key, but it comes without instructions, leaving him unsure of how or when to use it. For now, Jin-Woo focuses on his main goal, gathering the ingredients for the elixir of life to save his dying mother. He already has the World Tree fragment from Vulcan and the spring water from Echo Forest after defeating Mitus. With 2 ingredients secured, only one remains. Jin-Woo vows that when he returns to the dungeon, he will complete his mission and save his mother. After leaving the instance dungeon, Jin-Woo reflects on his progress. He realizes that the only thing he needs now is the purified Demon King's blood. Knowing how important this item is, Jin-Woo decides he must be fully prepared before attempting to obtain it. While checking his stats, he notices a significant level increase from his recent adventures. However, despite his growth, he is still classified as an E-rank hunter. This low rank prevents him from joining high-level raid missions. Jin-Woo decides it's time to stop hiding his true strength and get his rank reassessed. The next day, he heads to the assessment center. Coincidentally, Kel, his ever-loyal sidekick, is also there, scouting for potential recruits. Kel casually observes the hunters, guessing their ranks, when he spots Jin-Woo among them. Recognizing him instantly, Kel quickly calls Beck to inform him about Jin-Woo's reassessment. Hearing this, Beck drops everything and rushes to the center. While waiting for his turn, Jin-Woo overhears a nervous conversation between 2 hunters. One of them, visibly anxious, explains that he needs to pass the test and rank above E to support his wife and daughter, who have threatened to leave him. The other hunter reassures him, pointing out recruiters ready to hire anyone ranked above E. Listening to this, Jin-Woo reflects on the harsh realities faced by E-rank hunters. Moments later, Jin-Woo is called in for his test. Inside, the examiner assumes Jin-Woo is familiar with the process and instructs him to place his hand on the black crystal. Jin-Woo complies, but an error message appears on the machine. The examiner asks him to try again, but the same error occurs repeatedly. Her superior arrives and decides to test Jin-Woo himself, but the result is the same. The superior explains that the machine isn't malfunctioning. It simply cannot measure Jin-Woo's magical power. His energy has exceeded the device's limits, confirming that Jin-Woo has become the country's 10th S-rank hunter. Outside the evaluation center, Mr. Choi, a renowned fire mage, approaches Kel to discuss the progress of the winged ants investigation. Kel explains that while the investigative department has conducted autopsies and comparisons with previous cases, they still need more time to conclude. Mr. Choi acknowledges this but brings up the Red Gate incident, mentioning that the White Tiger Guild allowed a non-member to defeat the boss. Curious, he asks Kel about the man's identity. Kel reveals he left the raid before it ended and doesn't know the details, leaving Mr. Choi disappointed. Inside the center, the commotion around Jin-Woo's failed assessment grows. The examiner informs Jin-Woo that he must return in 3 days for a re-evaluation using specialized equipment capable of measuring his power. Meanwhile, Kel watches from a distance, realizing Jin-Woo is even more extraordinary than he had anticipated. As Kel plans to approach Jin-Woo, Mr. Choi and Kel enter the building, drawn by the buzz. Mr. Choi quickly senses Jin-Woo's aura and deduces he is the source of the commotion. Eager to recruit him, Mr. Choi introduces himself, but Jin-Woo casually walks past him, leaving the room stunned. Beck arrives moments later, exhausted from rushing over. Seeing the scene, Mr. Choi pieces together that Jin-Woo is the hunter who cleared the Red Gate, solidifying his belief in Jin-Woo's extraordinary abilities. That evening, Jin-Woo sits beside his mother, watching her sleep peacefully. Before leaving, he whispers for her to wait for him a little longer. Outside, Kel greets Jin-Woo with an unexpected confession. Kel admits Jin-Woo has changed his perspective, explaining that his job in the surveillance division is to monitor and discipline hunters who break the law. He admits that Jin-Woo has shattered his confidence in judging people. When Jin-Woo asks if he's under surveillance, Kel reassures him that S-rank hunters are beyond the division's control. Moments later, Gun-hee, the chairman of the Hunter Association, arrives. Congratulating Jin-Woo on becoming an S-rank hunter, Gun-hee explains that the failed reassessment was merely a formality. The moment the machine couldn't measure his power, his new rank was confirmed. Gun-hee invites Jin-Woo to join the association, offering him a prestigious position. He explains that the government holds little power and the balance of the country lies with the 5 major guilds. If Jin-Woo joins one of these guilds, it could disrupt the fragile equilibrium. Instead, Gun-hee proposes that Jin-Woo join the association to transform it into a 6th major power. Intrigued, Jin-Woo considers the offer but ultimately declines, explaining that he longs for battle and feels most alive in dungeons. Gun-hee, impressed but disappointed, respects his decision. Jin-Woo thanks him and leaves, determined to grow stronger and save his mother. Meanwhile, across the globe in America, Dong-soo awakens in a hospital, still recovering from his recent encounter with a powerful magical beast. When the deputy director visits, Dong-soo confirms that Sung Hwan, who defeated him, is indeed a magical beast. Fueled by humiliation and anger, Dong-soo resolves to prepare for a rematch, knowing he'll need a powerful artifact to stand a chance. Back in Korea, Jin-Woo searches through online auction sites for artifacts but finds them outrageously expensive. Determined, he knows he must be fully prepared before attempting to conquer the Demon Castle. He examines his Sphere of Avarice, an item that can double magical damage. He compares it to market items that only boost magic power by 20 to 30% and realizes how rare and valuable the sphere is. However, he knows selling it would raise too many questions, especially since he is only an E-rank hunter. Jin-Woo considers that having records of completing a high-level raid, like a rank A raid, might make selling it easier. But as an E-rank hunter, joining such raids is out of the question. While searching for opportunities, Jin-Woo comes across a job listing from the Hunters Guild. They are recruiting miners for a large-scale expedition with no rank requirements. Meanwhile, guild officials review Jin-Woo's file. Ji Hwan notices how much Jin-Woo has changed in just 4 months and suspects he might be a false ranker. However, his colleague Choi In-ho assures him otherwise. In-ho explains that Jin-Woo sustained injuries while clearing low-rank dungeons and became a hunter to support his sick mother and pay his sister's tuition. Ju-hwan is impressed by Jin-Woo's dedication to his family. He learns that Jin-Woo recently joined a Hunters Guild raid mission, but as a miner, not part of the assault team. Ji-hwan is puzzled by Jin-Woo's motives. At the gate site, Jin-Woo is accepted as a miner. He learns that large-scale gates require multiple teams, an assault team to fight monsters, a mining team to extract mana stones, and a recovery team to collect monster corpses. With so many roles, the rewards for these raids are immense. Inside the dungeon, the guildmaster, Mr. Choi, leads the assault team. He battles monsters solo, using his powerful fire magic to burn them while the tanks shield the team from his flames. The assault team pushes through the dungeon with ease, leaving behind only the boss to keep the gate open. Jin-Woo watches them exit, impressed by Mr. Choi's strength. Shortly after, the miners begin working inside the gate to extract mana stones. Jin-Woo overhears whispers about his E-rank but ignores them, knowing such comments are common. As he works, his impressive strength catches everyone's attention, making them question if he is really an E-rank hunter. When the leader calls for a lunch break, the team leaves the dungeon, but Jin-Woo stays behind, determined to finish his work. Once the others are gone, Jin-Woo sees his chance to sneak a look at the boss. As he sprints toward the boss room, excitement builds. He wonders if the boss is stronger than anything he has ever faced. Though he knows fighting it would harm the Hunters Guild, he cannot suppress his curiosity. Summoning his dagger, he approaches the entrance. But just as he is about to step inside, a sharp voice stops him. Cha Hae-in demands, her piercing voice cutting through the silence. "What the hell are you doing here?" Jin-Woo knew he messed up big time. With a resigned sigh, he turned to Cha-ha and pulled out the classic excuse. "I got lost." Yeah, right. Cha-ha wasn't buying it. She asked if he was from the mining team and bluntly informed him that he was standing in the boss room, which, in simple terms, meant he was about 3 seconds away from disaster. She ordered him to step back immediately. Jin-Woo, meanwhile, was having an internal crisis. He hadn't even heard her approach until she spoke, which was low-key terrifying. As Cha-ha eyed him suspiciously, she noticed something odd. The dagger she had seen earlier in his hand was gone. Just vanished. Was she seeing things? Jin-Woo quickly apologized for wandering off, trying to sound regretful. But Cha-ha wasn't in the mood for nonsense. She snapped at him to get out before he aggravated the boss. Jin-Woo turned to leave, but as he passed by Cha-ha, she suddenly told him to stop. She sniffed the air, her expression puzzled. Weird. He didn't reek. Every hunter had a certain scent, and Jin-Woo, nothing. She asked if he was really a hunter, and when Pawn confirmed he was an E-rank, she frowned, brushing off the oddity but cautioning him to be careful. As Jin-Woo finally walked away, she found herself wondering, was it his low rank? Or was there something else? And for some strange reason, she couldn't shake the thought that he actually smelled pretty nice. Jin-Woo's unexpected popularity. Back at the mining site, Jin-Woo resumed his work while his mining buddies were secretly jealous. The man got lost and somehow ended up meeting Cha-ha. All they could do was admire her from afar. They explained that she spent most of her time patrolling the area to protect them from the boss, even sacrificing her own rest. Jin-Woo, now fully aware of her dedication, realized this was why she was near the boss room in the first place. Then, the mining boss dropped an interesting fact. Cha-ha was uneasy around the scent of other hunters. The miners added that it was because of her unique constitution, which was why she always covered her nose with a handkerchief. But wait, Jin-Woo realized that her reaction to him had been different. No wrinkled nose, no disgust, just curiosity. Did that mean he didn't carry the typical hunter scent? He recalled that even the Red Gate boss had pointed this out before. Was it because he was just a player? And more importantly, what did being a player actually mean? He had no idea. After wrapping up work, Jin-Woo received his pay, and the mining boss looked way too happy. Thanks to Jin-Woo, they finished ahead of schedule. The miners even admitted that the guy had a natural talent for mining. Then, the boss dropped a crazy offer. Would Jin-Woo consider working long-term? Jin-Woo politely declined. One-time deal. The boss, visibly disappointed, still begged him to stay for one more day, explaining that they had back-to-back A-rank and C-rank missions tomorrow. Jin-Woo thought about it. His reevaluation test was scheduled for the day after tomorrow, and now that he was finally getting the hang of raiding, he felt confident. But wait, 2 missions in one day? The Hunters Guild was really out here speedrunning dungeons. The boss proudly revealed that their guild had 2 assault teams, something no other guild in the nation could pull off. Jin-Woo, impressed, agreed to return tomorrow. The boss, overjoyed, promised to double his salary. Jin-Woo, modest as always, told him not to worry, but the boss wasn't letting it go. That night, Chaha was deep in thought. Something about Jin-Woo didn't add up. She ordered someone to investigate him, only to find out that someone else had already looked into him earlier. Apparently, Mr. Choi had tasked them with the same job. But here's the kicker. The Hunter Association had sealed all of Jin-Woo's information. Why? The guy wasn't even a top-tier hunter. This was unheard of. Just as Chaha was about to dig deeper, she abruptly ended the call. Lying in bed, she couldn't stop thinking about Jin-Woo. She had met countless hunters, but he was the first one who actually smelled pleasant. The next morning, Jin-Woo arrived at the gate site, greeted like an old friend. It reminded him of his early hunting days. Wholesome moment. But business was business, and they started with the C-rank gate. Jin-Woo went full-on human excavator mode, collecting monostones like a machine. After finishing, they sat down for a meal, and the boss couldn't stop praising Jin-Woo. The team even finished early because of him. The boss tried again to convince Jin-Woo to stay, offering him 5 times the usual rate. Jin-Woo still not interested. Just then, Sun Ki-hoon, the captain of the 2nd Assault Team, showed up. He needed a replacement porter since theirs couldn't make it. The mining boss refused immediately, arguing that low-rank hunters like them had no business in a raid dungeon. But Ki-hoon, persistent, even offered extra pay. Still, no one volunteered until Jin-Woo casually raised his hand. The boss looked ready to throw a fit, but Jin-Woo, grinning with confidence, assured him it was fine. Ki-hoon, after hearing Jin-Woo was an E-rank, shrugged and figured, what's the worst that could happen? As they entered the dungeon, Jin-Woo noticed something weird. The gate was bigger than the one from yesterday, but Ki-hoon assured him that its magical energy wasn't as strong. The team was stacked, 6 A-rank hunters and 3 B ranks. More than enough to clear the place, but Jin-Woo couldn't shake the bad feeling. It reminded him of the Red Gate. Soon, they encountered dungeon jackals, weak enemies. The team wiped them out effortlessly. But why were C-rank monsters in an A-rank dungeon? Something wasn't right. Then, Jin-Woo spotted something terrifying. The jackals had collars. Someone had trained them. Before anyone could react, an army of high orcs appeared. One orc launched a spear, and Ki-hoon barely blocked it. The tank used his taunt skill, but it didn't work. The orcs ignored him and went straight for the backline. Even when the mage bound one, the monster broke free. Jin-Woo watched in horror as a martial artist got injured. Then, an orc chopped off a hunter's arm. The healer rushed in, regrowing the arm completely. But before she could react, an orc snuck up behind her. Jin-Woo intervened just in time, using his ruler's hand to rip out the orc's spine. Jin-Woo then activated his stealth skill, secretly weakening the enemies. The team, unaware of his help, noticed the monsters suddenly struggling. They used this chance to go all in, wiping them out. When the dust settled, the hunters were confused. Something had weakened the orcs, but what? The mages denied involvement, saying it wasn't possible without an assassin-type hunter. The bespectacled mage, however, had figured it out. Their porter was far more dangerous than he let on, and just as the team decided to leave, they realized the gate was sealed. A barrier had trapped them inside. Jin-Woo knew one thing. Things were about to get much, much worse. Almost immediately, everyone feels a surge of powerful magic, sparking the question of whether this was the boss. The mages hurry to dismantle the barrier. Jin-Woo wonders aloud why such a massive magical fluctuation wasn't detected earlier, especially when they were outside. After all, even a B-rank hunter should have sensed it. Just then, the mages begin bleeding profusely, and it dawns on everyone. Someone had cursed the barrier, setting a trap. The captain turns around only to find an entire army of orcs looming behind them. They count around 50 orcs, and the leaders from both sides step forward. Halfway, the orc leader attempts to communicate, but his words are unintelligible, until the orc shaman takes control of his body and speaks in perfect human language. The shaman introduces himself as Carolyn and tells Kyun that he's been eagerly awaiting the humans. Kovum then asks if Carolyn was the one who sealed off the entrance, to which the shaman confirms. Kyun, curious, asks if there's any being stronger than him in the dungeon, but Carolyn replies there isn't. He challenges them, face him, or perish at the hands of his soldiers. Without hesitation, decides to meet the shaman head-on, and the orcs immediately lead the way. As Jin-Woo reflects on the situation, he realizes this feels eerily similar to the double dungeon. But these people are completely different from any challenge he's faced before. Meanwhile, outside the gate, Cha is frantically searching for Jin-Woo, wondering if he might have bailed on the mission. When the mining boss notices her distress, she asks about Jin-Woo and learns that he has entered the gate as a porter. Back inside, Jin-Woo and the rest of the group finally reach the throne room, where they are greeted by Cardigan and a terrifying horde of orcs. Thanks for watching. Subscribe Annie Sage 10 so you don't miss the next part.